So we have a question from our friend who's having a conflict in his gym with his coach, and he needs some advice. So what's going on is he's been training Sambo once a week, and he also does Jiu-Jitsu, right? And his focus is on Jiu-Jitsu, but he really likes the leg lock game. He's found that the leg locks seem to be a viable weapon for him, and he really enjoys them, and he likes it, right? The problem he's running into is that his coaches and the upper belts in his gym do not like him using leg locks. In fact, when he used them a while ago, his coaches told him that he can't use them. He restricted. You're no longer allowed to use them because we said so. And he said he was getting some catches on him, and he thinks that possibly they didn't like that. And then recently he used a leg lock style position to get a sweep, and then came up, let go of the leg, but used it for a sweep. After the roll was over, he was then taken over to the side with his coach, and his coach threatened him, said, "You're not going to use those techniques or else." And so he's kind of at a rock and a hard place. He's like, well, what do? I really like the gym, I like the people, but I really like these leg locks, and I feel like it's a weapon or a tool that I could use that I could be good with. So what do I do? So first off, thanks for the question, brother. And I'm gonna start this video off with a quote because I was rereading Walden. It's a book by Henry David Thoreau. Probably heard of it, you probably read it, I'm sure, whatever, I don't know. So I'm gonna read this quote to you. It says, "If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away." You might kind of see where I'm going with this. Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art, right? There is an art side to it, I believe. And one of the things that I really think is beautiful about Jiu-Jitsu, because we don't have this giant governing body telling us how to do everything, is that you get to see this explosion of creativity, right? Everybody's just doing whatever they want to do. It has the downfall of like not giving you this concrete like step by step like direction on how to get to the next belt level or next skill level. But I think that that's sort of a really, I don't care, that's not that important. To me, it teaches you something so much better, right? Like you train because you like it and you love it and you enjoy getting better at something regardless of how much, external gratification you get. And there's just this creativity that can happen because you're not being restricted and confined into this little box. Now, that's not to say it's wrong or right, that's just to say it's just the way that we're doing things. And I like that way because I think that rolling and jiu-jitsu can be an expression of self. You think about like rolling with someone. I've rolled with people so many times where they were super chill in person, and then you roll with them and they're incredibly intense, they're incredibly aggressive. And you're like, oh, there's something different about you I don't know about. Even in the same breath, I've trained with someone that was like really like crazy, like, and outgoing, and then you roll with them and they're very relaxed. There's even been times where I've rolled with someone and they didn't say anything, but then when we were training together, I could feel that something was off. And I was like, well, what's wrong? And then they'll say, hey, this is going on in my life outside of the gym. And you can tell, like, oh, that sometimes when you're training, the way that you roll, the way that you do techniques, the techniques that you use, all of it is a part of who you are and the way that you tend to go about this. And ultimately, I think that in your situation, regardless of whatever happens, I'll give you some advice in a second, you need to be able to step to the music that you hear. You need to be able to stretch and go in the direction to become the person that you want to become. Because you don't even want to mess around with like letting yourself be confined in a box that you don't want to be in. Because like a boxing coach told me years ago when I was first getting into mixed martial arts and I was learning how to box, we're sitting there hitting the bag and he's talking to some of the young fighters. And this was a retired boxer, a guy that could still whip everyone's ass in the room. But he was talking to him. He said, man, you're going to blink and all this fighting stuff, all this like ability to like really take in all this stuff, this is all going to be over. You're going to blink and you're going to have a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, and a minivan. And I'll never forget that. And he was right too, because that was 20. I blinked and now I'm 32. And that like huge swath of time is gone. And so you don't want to, you can train for a long, long time, but the ability to be able to just focus without so many other distractions like big careers or jobs or kids, wives, all that stuff, that only happens for a short time. So you don't want to waste it by not being able to move in the direction that you want to move, because ultimately this is your journey. It's not mine. It's not your coach's. It's yours. And it's not to say that your coach is wrong either, because like I said, there's not the way in jiu-jitsu, there's a way. And their way might be perfect for someone else, but the way that you're wanting to move through, the way that you're being pulled towards, it might not be the way for you personally. Now, if you want to try to patch things up, maybe a way that might work. First off, if you're being threatened, like it's okay to have disagreements with your coach sometimes, because as people we're going to disagree. That's okay, right? That's part of having a relationship with anyone, whether it be your wife, your girlfriend, your friends. Everybody has squabbles with people. But if you feel threatened, there's a problem. But if you want to try to work things out, there may be a way. And I would say that as a coach, I've had different times where I've held consistent beliefs, not because I had a strong opinion about them, but just because it's just the way that I did things. And one instance was with one of my white belts came up to me years ago, and he said, Chewy, he's like, why do we roll from the knees? And I looked at him and I said, why we roll from the knees? Because I don't know. I didn't have a good reason. So I sat down for like a week and I thought about it. I was like, why do we roll from the knees? I couldn't come up with a really good explanation. And so at the end of it, I came back to him and I said, I don't know. Like, minimizing risk of injury, I guess, but we can just start from a guard position and we do that. And honestly, if you learn how to do takedowns, you really don't get injured from them that often. It typically comes from people that are inexperienced with them, and then they get thrown on their feet and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to fall properly. They're not well versed with all the techniques and they're too rigid. And so I was like, let's just start from the positions. It's a good point, right? I'm glad you asked. And he disapproved of it, but he asked. He didn't come at me and say, we shouldn't start from the knees, right? He didn't start pointing fingers and telling me what to do, because otherwise I probably would have put up the defensive wall. So with your coach, what I would say to you is come to him and say, listen, you're my coach, you're my instructor, you're my guide in this stuff. Tell me why we can't do them. Why can't I do them? Because I feel like it's a really good weapon. Everybody's using them. It's obviously a viable weapon. And I can say from personal experience, when I started learning leg locks and really accepting them as a part of my game and diving into them, it created a depth of techniques that were available, because you're no longer attacking just this. You have a whole other half of your body, and they can integrate really well with your upper body submissions because you keep the person guessing. And so again, ask why. And just see what they say. If they come back to you with like threatening stuff like this, no, you can't do them and blah, 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 whatever, then again, it's just the way that they believe, and that's okay, but it might not be the best path for you to go on. And so then you might need to separate. However, maybe they have some good reasons. Maybe you should hear them out and listen to them and be open to the idea. Again, what you're doing here is you're opening the door for conversation to happen. And so if they have a good reason, maybe you can find a middle ground with them and work something out with your coach. But ultimately, again, I think that you're feeling this pull, right? You're feeling this pull. I want to do leg locks really bad. And I don't think that you should have to let that go. Because if you get confined to this little box of not being able to do the things that you want to do, I promise you will regret it. So, talk to your coach, see if you can open the door to conversation, see if you can patch things up. If not, either way, really, make sure that you follow the music that you hear and pursue those leg locks.